Hello and welcome to the final episode of the Morning Brew for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today is a Friday, TGIF, the 14th of August 2020, and we continue here from the NTN live from the GIS studios to bring you the latest in information and developments coming from the government of St. Lucia. The lead stories we have for today: phase one of the reopening of the tourism sector has been extended, and 5 countries have been removed from the designated travel bubble that is related to the bubblecation, and countries the world over celebrate International Youth Day that was observed earlier this week. We have the details to these stories and more coming up after this break. We will also be looking at the past week a little bit. We did hear some great news this week, getting an update to the nation from officials, health, tourism, and also the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, an update on how things have been going so far in our national response to the coronavirus. And we've also received word that some 1,400 persons that have returned to work so far within the tourism sector at the hotels, and that's not even including taxi operators, dayboat operators. Things are looking up. Things are on the up and up, and our fingers are crossed that it just improves with time. We also did receive word from the Ministry of Health and Wellness that St. Lucia has returned to the 100% recovery rate and 0 active cases at this time of the COVID-19 in terms of diagnosis. So there are no active cases of COVID-19 here in St. Lucia. There have been 25 confirmed cases. The remaining 3 that were active up until this week were confirmed to have recovered, and they were being treated at the respiratory hospital. So our fingers are crossed also that we do not hear of any new cases in a hurry as we try to fit ourselves into this new normal. A gentle reminder that we are still under a state of emergency, and we hope that reality is not lost on the general public. We do hope that you continue to observe the protocols, take into consideration the emergency powers order, what you are supposed to do at this time as the government of St. Lucia, as the authorities try to combat COVID-19. Remember to use your mask. You might think that you're boarding a bus and there's so much breeze blowing through the bus, through the windows, that you don't really need to wear it, but it's important. It is part of what we've been asked to do by health authorities, and so we must comply. If you're going into establishments, if you're not obligated to upon walking in, take the initiative and do it yourself. Use a mask, use hand sanitizer, take hand sanitizer with you when you're going to town, when you're going out, when you're going to the corner shop. Make sure you try to protect yourself and your family. We're also in the Atlantic hurricane season, and so we hope you are taking all measures to protect your home, protect your property, and also in terms of the health aspect, we hope you're doing all you can to ensure that receptacles are overturned around your home, to ensure that there are no breeding sites possible for the vectors that transmit the dengue virus, the Zika, chikungunya, what have you. We are all in this together, and we hope that you're doing your part. Stay tuned. We have the details for the latest stories coming out of the government of St. Lucia coming up after this break.
She's been watching, waiting, wondering when the sands of time will give way to a tide of change, and for yesterday and today to become a new tomorrow, for a time when her sun can kiss the cheeks of your loved one and her stars can twinkle in her honeymoon skies, when her earthly embrace will reassure and calm your soul, and her unique view can change your whole perspective. Proudly, she has risen to meet new challenges and to provide safe harbor to all who reach her shores. For her hopes and dreams still stand shoulder to shoulder, a precious reminder of experiences yet to come. So, wherever your moments and memories take you, let her sense of adventure set you free. She is St. Lucia. Let her inspire you.
Thank you for staying tuned. This is the Morning Brew live from the GIS studios. This is the NTN Morning Update, essentially bringing you the latest developments from the government of St. Lucia. And leading our stories for the 24-hour news cycle, due to the high risk associated with phase 1 of the reopening of the tourism sector, it has been extended. The disclosure was made during the COVID-19 National Response Update to the nation on Tuesday, 11th August 2020. That was this week. And officials from ministries of tourism, health and wellness asserted at the health and safety of the public remaining paramount while returning livelihoods. Officials highlighted that while moving to phase 2 is not possible at the moment, other areas are being explored. Lucia Antoine has the details to that story on considerations from the authorities on the tourism sector.
Phase 1 of the reopening of the tourism sector has been extended to September 30th, 2020 due to the risk associated with this phase. The Ministries of Tourism and Health and Wellness are working collaboratively to ensure strict health and safety measures exist and are followed. Minister for Tourism, Information and Broadcasting, Culture and Creative Industries, Honorable Dominic Fede, indicated that while the first phase has been extended, the Ministry of Tourism is exploring options to add more attractions and restaurants, to name a few. He explained its importance so as to ensure that individuals are able to gain an income to be able to provide for their families.
I think we are at the stage now where we need to consider having a look at if not moving into phase 2, maybe phase and a half, for want of a better phrase. And that is to ensure that every step of the way that we place at paramount importance the health and safety of the people of St. Lucia. It is the only way that we can succeed, and that is by maintaining the very disciplined and stringent protocols which we've put in place to make sure that our population is protected first and foremost, and then B, to get some business and get the country back to work.
Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Information and Broadcasting, Culture and Creative Industries, Donalyn Vite, highlighted that considerations for Phase 2 encompasses the inclusion of dive as an activity, reopening of other sites and attractions once COVID-19 certified for operation, and reopening villas and Airbnb properties to international jurisdictions.
Right now, we are getting the direction from Ministry of Health that the level of risk still present in our source markets is too high and it is too concerning. And so we are currently evaluating what phase 2 is going to look like for us. Like Minister indicated, it might mean that we have a phase 1.5, or we can extend phase 1 where we're able to add in more services, where those that we can do safely and where we have the cooperation of the service providers. But we are still holding consultations. We will hold with the sites and attractions. We have been speaking to the divers and other water-based activities. But essentially, it is a decision that has to be taken on board with the consultation of the sector and whether or not they're willing to participate, because their participation within this high-risk period would mean the level of preparation would have to be in check before we move on.
The Ministry of Tourism will provide an update as to the next steps to be taken in the reopening of the tourism sector. From the Government Information Service, I am Lucia Antoine reporting.
And we have, thank you very much, Lucia, for that news report. And we've so far heard of all cases of COVID-19 being recovered. We're back to the 100% recovery rate. We so far in St. Lucia has had no one succumbing to COVID-19, and all 25 of our cases have recovered. And so we are all grateful and appreciative for those statistics, especially in a world where persons are dying, persons are suffering, persons have lost their jobs in the world, they have not returned to work. There's so many things that are happening all due to COVID-19. And St. Lucia, in comparison, is doing relatively well in its management of COVID-19, primarily in terms of the health aspect where the cases are recovering. The Ministry of Tourism, Information and Broadcasting, Culture and the Creative Industries assures that as it seeks to reopen the tourism sector, there will be no compromising on the health of the citizenry. In fact, the country's management of COVID-19 has been described as exemplary as it continues to make adjustments where necessary, instituting rigorous protocols to ensure the safety of all. We go to a report on all cases being recovered.
St. Lucia is setting the pace for the region with its exemplary management of COVID-19. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Information and Broadcasting, Culture and Creative Industries, Donalyn Vitae, indicated that as the country seeks to adjust to the new normal, no efforts are being spared to ensure the public safety. 13 properties on island have been COVID-19 certified, having met rigorous protocols which required a level of investment by the properties. Of these 13 properties, 9 of them have reopened and are taking in active bookings. This, according to the Permanent Secretary, aids in gaining the confidence of both staff and visitors staying at the properties. Other entities have been taking the necessary measures to become COVID-19 certified and resume operations.
We also have yachting that has resumed its service. We have the IGY Rodney Bay Marina, which is open, as well as Marigo Bay Marina. We have the the maritime sector. Apart from yachting, we also have the dayboat charters that are open. We have about 26 operators that have gone through. We have 56 in all in terms of those who are actively involved. In terms of SUFRA is putting its house in order and ensuring that protocols are in place for it to resume and really announce itself to be part of the sector again. And there are lots of people within the SUFRA Bay who are operators who are ready and willing to resume their trade.
The tourism sector, according to the Permanent Secretary, is a diverse one, and as efforts are made towards its reopening, she assures that the health and safety of all St. Lucians remain paramount. As of the 12th of August 2020, all 25 COVID-19 patients have fully recovered and tested negative for COVID-19. This gives St. Lucia a 100% recovery rate, as currently there are no reported active COVID-19 cases. The island has recorded no COVID-19 related deaths. 99 test results received on August 11, 2020 were all negative. A total of 4,373 tests have been conducted to date. National epidemiologist in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Dr. Michelle Fassois, urged members of the public to remain vigilant and continue adhering to all stipulated protocols, given the increased risk associated with the reopening of the country's various sectors.
We remind everyone that as we continue with the phased reopening of the country, the risk for introduction of COVID-19 has increased. The public is advised that all protocols are still in place, including the reduced numbers for public transportation and hygiene protocols for private sector establishments. These also include the use of face masks in public, the sanitizing of hands, and maintaining the recommended 6-foot physical distance from others. The Ministry of Health once again reiterates the importance of maintaining the quarantine of returning nationals and visitors, as it is a great measure in minimizing the risk of transmitting COVID-19.
The Ministry of Health and Wellness urges individuals who have been placed in quarantine to adhere to the 14-day quarantine period. Where home quarantine has been granted, individuals must remain there for the full period of time. This action is to protect the health and safety of every individual in the country. From the Government Information Service, I am Janelle Norville.
Thank you, Janelle, for that news report. Again, all cases recovered here in St. Lucia. And so you don't become the next case, ensure that you use the hand sanitizer, wash your hands, the wearing of the masks. All of these protocols need to be adhered to protect yourself and your family. We are due for another break this morning, but when we come back, 5 countries are removed from the designated travel bubble. We have the details to that development and more coming up after.
sanitizer. Better yet, use soap and water.
We must protect each other if we are to beat this corona.
Together let us win this war. Be a soldier for St. Lucia. Together let us win this war. Be a soldier, together we can beat this corona.
So you don't become the next case. Avoid touching your face. I'm sure you've been told so. Handshakes and hugging are up. No, no.
Advice is you the please. Cover your mouth and your nose if you cough or sneeze.
Practice social distancing and avoid large social gatherings.
Together let us win this war. Be a soldier for St. Lucia. Together let us win this war. St. Lucia, be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
For further information, please contact the hotline at 311 or the Bureau of Health Education at 468-5349.
We are live from the GIS studios, bringing you the NTN Morning Brew. Morning updates coming from the government of St. Lucia. 5 additional countries have been removed from the designated travel bubble. The Ministry of Health and Wellness highlighted the criteria for countries to be added or removed from the designated bubble, indicating that based on information, it is able to respond quickly to changes, adding or removing countries as seen fit. We have a report again from Lucia Antoine.
Caribcation's latest marketing brand, Bubblecation, allows travelers from countries within the designated travel bubble to reconnect with family and friends or enjoy a getaway in St. Lucia. Visitors within the bubble countries with a travel history from these areas in the last 21 days will be exempt from quarantine. However, they are required to obtain a negative PCR test result no more than 7 days prior to the date of travel and are subject to mandatory screening on arrival. Ensuring that St. Lucia remains a safe destination in the face of COVID-19, the travel bubble has recently been revised. St. Lucia Tourism Authority's Public Relations Manager, Jareen Georges, noted that following examination of travel bubble countries by the Ministry of Health and Wellness, 5 countries have been removed from the travel bubble, including the Bahamas, Jamaica, Aruba, St. Martin, and Bermuda.
As of August 12, 2020, the following countries now form a part of the Caribbean bubble and are eligible for participation in the ongoing Bubblecation campaign: Antigua and Barbuda, Anguilla, Barbados, Bonaire, British Virgin Islands, Carriacou, Dominica, Grenada, Guyana, Montserrat, St. Barthélemy, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Trinidad and Tobago. To qualify for Bubblecation, participants are reminded that they must be coming from the jurisdiction of origin, no less than 21 days of having been there, and must present a negative PCR COVID-19 test within 7 days of arrival in St. Lucia. They too must pre-fill the travel registration form on stlucia.org and check with the airlines for travel schedules.
The Public Relations Manager explained that the health and safety of citizens and local communities remain paramount. Medical Officer of Health at the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Dr. Glenford Joseph, explained the criteria used to determine a country's status as to whether or not it is included in the designated travel bubble list.
The Ministry of Health and Wellness continues to assess the COVID-19 situation, not only in St. Lucia, but globally. And as such, depending on the level of transmission, the risk of the level of transmission that is taking place in those countries where the risk would be elevated, at least once you recognize those, you want to limit these persons who can come to St. Lucia and be moving around freely. Because once you come from a territory where there's a relatively high level of transmission, it means that persons, even though they may have a negative COVID test at the time when the test was done, they could have been exposed subsequently, and within that 7 days, come to St. Lucia and develop symptoms and begin shedding the virus. So for those countries with a low level of transmission or no transmission, those are the ones, and especially those within the Caribbean territory, to be within the Caribbean bubble.
For more information on the bubblecation, individuals can log on to www.caribcation.org or call 458-7101. From the Government Information Service, I am Anicia Antoine reporting.
Thank you, Anicia, for that report. The Bureau of Health Education reminds the general public of the do's and don'ts of home quarantine. This after 10 nationals were placed into a government facility for violating home quarantine protocols. 14-day institutional quarantine remains the gold standard for observation of individuals internationally, including those entering St. Lucia in wake of the coronavirus. A health and family life educator, Naomi Grandison, is concerned that the gravity of the pandemic may be lost on many because of the information that they choose to rely on. Naomi and I had a very candid conversation on yesterday's episode of The Morning Brew, and here's what she had to say.
If, for instance, persons are receiving information from one, or they're just bent on receiving an anti-establishment information, like even if they don't know the credibility of the source, what I'm feeling on the ground is that there are quite a few people who, because they have an antagonistic perspective of whatever the establishment is, they will tend to gravitate to information that just goes against it. People need to understand that giving into information that minimizes COVID-19 is only going to put us at greater risk. You understand? If we're going to act like it's not an issue, we put ourselves at greater risk. And we're encouraging persons, and it's not until it hits home sometimes that we don't change, and we don't have to wait for that.
Grandison, a health and family life educator at the Bureau of Education. Grandison also stressed that those who home quarantine and their relatives in the household must uphold the protocols. Major requirements for home quarantine include restrictions on visitors to the home and many others that she listed in yesterday's interview.
You need to reduce on the visitors, and this individual should have a separate room, or at least be sleeping at a distance further from everybody else. Have a separate bathroom. And if there is not adequate facilities for that there is sanitization after they use the bathroom. Okay, a specific time for them to use it. So this is just as a precaution. So if the person is infectious, is shredding the virus for whatever reason, then it could mitigate the further transfer of that infection.
Now, over the past few months, people who have been granted home quarantine have not been adhering to the protocols. All persons in home quarantine are required to stay indoors for 14 days. As such, further restrictions on home quarantine have been instituted with immediate effect. That was done at the end of July, I believe, with immediate effect. Anyone found in breach of home quarantine will be immediately taken into government quarantine to complete the time. Under this act, the police officers have the duty to enforce compliance. It also states that they may arrest without a warrant any person whom he or she has reasonable cause to believe that they have committed any offense. And so all of these things are legislated. The Emergency Powers Act makes accommodation and gives the police powers to arrest individuals for not even wearing a mask. And if we go back to the update to the nation, the Royal St. Lucia Police Force Acting Commissioner Milton Daisy did indicate that they will not go about arresting or detaining individuals who do not wear a mask in town or where have you, where they're supposed to wear the mask. But at least persons need to take initiative and understand that they need to do this for the safety of themselves, for the safety of the population. So the authorities cannot go about ticketing and penalizing people for every single offense within the protocols. You need to take responsibility for yourself, but I guess the more egregious ones would need to be taken seriously, and one of those being the infractions related to home quarantine. So if you do not comply to home quarantine, the authorities have the right to take you into a government institution to ride out the rest of your days, the rest of the fortnight that you're supposed to be in quarantine. So please take note of that. And also, Going back again to the individuals who were taken by the authorities to go into institutional quarantine, we also did get word from the acting commissioner that there were individuals who were also arrested and charged for coming into St. Lucia illegal border entry, and that was indicated during the update to the nation. Individuals, I believe, within the Southern District. We did get confirmation on arrests made there, and also by West Coast Police. An update from the Northern Division is still pending. And also, you all know of individuals who arrested for violating the curfew order. And of course, many of them were discharged and let off with warnings. Countries across the world were celebrating International Youth Day earlier this week. And every day, young people are enriching institutions and processes at the local, national, and global levels. And this year, the theme of International Youth Day, observed this week, is Youth Engagement for Global Action. It highlights the importance and value of young people's contributions and draws lessons on how their representation and engagement in formal institutional politics can be significantly enhanced. Minister for Education, Innovation, Gender Relations and Sustainable Development, the Honorable Dr. Gail Rigobert, indicated that she remains committed to seeing that young people continue to be at the forefront of the development of St. Lucia. She explained that continued investments in education will ensure that no one is left behind and that a quality education for all becomes our reality here on island. The government, she added, will continue to amplify efforts aimed at modernizing our education system, making it more relevant to our times, and provide greater opportunities for the learning and application of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, as well as the creative sectors for our young people. The minister explained that young people are also the country's hope in achieving the Sustainable Development 2030 goals, and the government will continue to encourage them to play a part and allow their voices to be heard. She welcomed the United Nations theme and ended by reiterating her unwavering commitment to the young people of St. Lucia, stating that she will fully support the youth in their positive endeavors and will continue to empower them so that together they are able to build a new St. Lucia. So these are the stories for our 24-hour news cycle. And in between there, just going over, the latest and the lead stories of the past week, really. I'd like to thank you so much for watching and keeping abreast and tuning into NTN every morning, every afternoon, every night, and just keeping it on. If you're watching on air, if you're watching online, we really do appreciate it. It's important that you keep your eyes peeled, keep your ears to the ground, knowing what's happening, because coronavirus continues to be an ever-present threat. As we go into the weekend, I hope you do stay safe. I will see you back at the top of the week this coming Monday. In the meantime, do enjoy. My name is Jessie Leon, signing off for now. Again, stay tuned. Subscribe. Like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you always know when we post new and important content. Yesterday, we got an update from the NIC. They were in studio speaking to us about the sums of monies that have so far been distributed to the individuals who've been displaced due to the effects of COVID-19. Important information, and also giving updates as to how persons can continue to check up on their checks, their monies that they're supposed to be receiving. And we're hearing, since the 1,433 individuals that have since returned to work, an appeal being made to employers to update the portal, the NIC portal, to let the NIC know if they have so far brought back on their staff and which number of staff, how many, who exactly, so that they can update their records as well. That's it for now. My name is Jessie Leon, signing off. Do enjoy. Keep safe.